staff and the Green Valley News and Sahuarita Sun that are in the audience. Yes, exactly. Hereby call the order of the meeting of the Sahuarita Town Council. Remind everybody it's being recorded live. Tonight's invocation will be given by Lisa Cole, our town clerk, and the pledge will be led by us afterwards. So, Ms. Cole.
We are meeting today to conduct matters of business, guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities so that our affairs may reach a successful conclusion. Thank you for being our source of guidance tonight. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Could you please join me in the pledge? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks. And though we led the pledge, I'm not going to have everybody come down and take a picture like we usually do with our student. This time, Madam Clerk, a roll call, please.
Councilmember Bracco.
Here.
Councilmember Davis.
Here.
Councilmember Gillespie.
Here.
Councilmember Priolo. Here. Councilmember Morales.
Here.
Vice Mayor Egbert. Here. Mayor Murphy.
Thank you. Next is item 5, call to the public. At this time, any member of the public is invited to address the town council on any issue which is on tonight's consent agenda or any issue which the town council can lawfully act upon at a future meeting. Pursuant to Arizona open meeting laws, the council may not discuss the items, but individual members of the council may respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the council, may ask staff to review the matter, or may ask that the matter be placed on a future agenda. I don't have any cards. Is anybody on staff like to address the council? Seeing no movement, I will close the call to the public and move on to council and town manager brief summary of events. Since we have Councilmember Morales on the phone, I'll start with her just so I don't forget. Councilmember Morales, do you have anything to report?
No, I don't.
Okay. Simon? Diane?
We have a rockin' new place to get your hair cut.
Now, why are you looking at me when you say that?
Oh, my gosh, I wish them the best of luck.
Yes, The Cut. It's called The Cut.
The barber shop. I loved it, and the vibe is just awesome, and I hope to see more businesses like that with that young vibe, and so eager to bring a family business to this town. God bless them.
Absolutely, thanks. And I know you were one of their first people in the chair.
I was.
On there. I was not, but I wanted to save it for other people that needed it. Bill? Dr. Gillespie? Karen?
I have one, and I'm desperately trying to figure out what the program was, and I can't remember it. Beth, where's Beth? The award that both the town and then especially for you as being a manager.
APWA.
Thank you. I was like, oh, I can't remember the acronym. AP.
I think it was APWA, right, Beth?
Right. So I was able to attend that luncheon with Beth and members of the staff and those that were participants. We received. Is this in your reports?
No, not now.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Not now.
Not now.
I didn't mean to take it, but it was lovely to be a part of that group. The town received award for the crossing, Hill Creek Crossing, thank you. And then we were able to celebrate Beth's award too as a manager of the year. Is that the right title? Which is a distinguishing thing for her to receive. So thank you for the invite, and it was great to support the town.
Thanks for going. I got the pleasure of staying at a long RTA PAG meeting. Yes, you did, in lieu of going to that, so I appreciate that. And I did want to do a shout out to Congressman Juan Ciscomani. We were one of the recipients of a $3 million award for the extension of Campbell Street extension, which we've been working on. So having friends on appropriations doesn't hurt on occasion. Very appreciative of that. And we had a bunch of events. I can't believe we haven't touched on July 4th because we were on summer recess, but the Stars and Stripes event, again, working with our streets department and our Boy Scouts, that journey of 11 years putting up the American flags. They had started with 50 11 years ago, and I think we're up to 207 or 4, all the way out toward town boundary. And I get a lot of comments, especially from outside the community, on that. And Diane touched on the ribbon cutting we went to. And then I went to an event this last Saturday. The UCHC, United Community Health Center, celebrated their 40th anniversary serving the community. So that was really nice. That's all I had, Mr. Dilly. Did you want to touch on anything?
Yeah, I'll just take a quick minute or two from you tonight. I appreciate the opportunity. I just want to remind the council, getting kicked off from the summer recess, we're hitting a month busy with meetings. We've got tonight's meeting, obviously, but we also have a special e-session with council next Monday night. And then on the 28th, we have regularly scheduled meetings. So it's packed. And in all of that, there's the league conference that's scheduled for the very end of this month. I think 5 of you have indicated your intent to participate, and I think that's wonderful.
And Council, I don't think Bill can go, but he's going to get an award for 12 years.
That's right.
Of service at that. I'll pick it up for you.
We're going to make a life-size picture, and the mayor's just going to kind of hold it as he walks up to get it. Okay. Anyway, but I really appreciate the council's willingness to engage in that event and represent the community. I think it's a wonderful place to do that, and trust me, I've been to those conferences where council isn't really strongly represented, and it makes a big difference. So thanks for your willingness and making yourself available. I also want to take an opportunity. I know individually you may have met our new intern in the management office, but I'd like to ask Ray where is she? There you are, Ray. Come on up to the podium, please. Starting this year, Mayor and Council, Sahuarita will be one of 3 communities in Pima County participating in partnership with the University of Arizona's MPA program to sponsor a fellow, and that's pretty significant. Ray, as one of these fellow students, made application for this scholarship to be recognized. And so let me just tell you a little bit about Ray. So she was born in Florida, is that correct, Ray?
You got it.
Okay, and that has a stand, you can up and down that thing. We're
On
fancy
the
here.
bottom right hand on the top of that little black toggle switch, right there on the corner. Right there, yep. You just toggle that up. It's like magic, it just raises.
There you go. So she was born in Florida. She spent some time in California, and then she landed an internship up in Alaska. It was only intended to be 3 months. Is that correct? It turned into be
Over 10 years
10
of
years.
living in Alaska, yes.
Real bummer of an assignment, right? Having to spend 10 years in Alaska. But grateful that she's here. By the end of her tenure up in Alaska, this was with a nonprofit group, she ended up getting into local government. And as a matter of fact, she was actually a city manager in a small community, 500 people.
500 people, yeah.
Are you worried about your job? No.
I am, after meeting her, yes. But she, she realized that, she has a real passion for local government, really driven that way, and she realized that if she wanted to advance her career in local government, she needed to get a master's in public administration. And so she pursued that course with the University of Arizona. Grateful to have her here as one of the participating communities in this program. We have the privilege of having Ray with us for the school year. She'll be here on Mondays, and then she'll do some more time remote, but it's only a 15-hour-a-week internship. But we're going to expose her to everything. She's hailing out of the city, out of the town manager's office, but she'll literally be working with all of the leadership team, all the departments, working on our projects. And with her background and experience, I expect nothing but the best from her. And I think we'll see that, and she'll get a lot of good experience working with us.
Well,
So
welcome
I
to
need-
the town.
And I need you to straighten them out as you get them.
Take notes.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Council. I also just want to support and thank your city manager for recognizing the importance of mentorship. Your whole team has just been so kind and welcoming at the city, or I should say town. So I look forward to learning more about Sahuarita, and I'm here on Mondays.
Great.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for supporting us and helping us. As Shane mentioned, the next were you finished? I'm sorry, Shane.
I'm done. Thank you, Mayor.
The next regularly scheduled meeting is August 28th. And I did forget one other thing. There's somebody on this dais that may be having a birthday this week, but I don't want to embarrass him.
Well, let's do it.
No, that's okay. But he might have been a firefighter at one time. I don't know. But I'm not going to embarrass him for this.
Well, happy birthday to whoever it is.
Yes, early happy birthday. Next, Madam Clerk, item number 7.
Presentation and discussion regarding the 2023 legislative session.
Thanks, and Mr. Barrett, Nathan Barrett, our management analyst, will introduce the item with Karen Cruz of the Cruz Group. Will be in Teams or Zoom coming in. And Nathan, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The 2023 legislative session has come to a close, which is why I'm here. I'm going to give you a quick overview about what all we covered this year, talk about some of the legislative victories we experienced, the one big setback we had, and what we're doing to prepare for 2024. So the big story, I think, from the 2023 legislative session are 2 big numbers. First big number being the longest session on record. And by on record, I only went back to 2000 looking at this data. So maybe we had a super long session in the 70s.
Now, I think the league said it was the longest session.
Okay, but they did cheat a little bit by having a 45-day recess, and that pumped up their number a little bit. The other big number is the governor's veto-rama this year. More vetoes in her first year than all 8 years of Governor Ducey's administration. She vetoed nearly 40% of every bill that crossed her desk, whereas Governor Ducey only vetoed about 3% of the bills that crossed his desk. Number of top stories that we will remember about this session. I'm not going to go through each of these. Some of these you may have read about. The expulsion of Representative Liz Harris is only the 5th time in Arizona's history when a member of the legislature was expelled. We all look back at Tamale-gate fondly, and I think I covered the do-it-yourself budgeting session that we experienced this year. If you want me to cover any of these other top stories, I'm more than happy to answer questions. We had a number of legislative victories. The big victory, this was the league fighting the good fight. They were able to stop the zoning preemption bills. This was the effort by the legislature to preempt local zoning laws. Besides that, there were a number of significant vetoes, only to be expected with the number of vetoes that were going around. You get a veto, and you get a veto, everyone gets a veto. But on each of these, we did submit a letter to the governor requesting that she take that action. So we have been involved. And lest I get accused of kvetching about what the legislature isn't doing or shouldn't be doing, I do want to at least recognize a number of favorable bills that they did pass. Perhaps of most significance is the second bullet point there, a new law which will allow law enforcement agencies to charge the public when a public information request includes video. So they can now recover costs from that. The big setback was the residential rental tax. You may remember back in January in my first update when I warned you about mostly dead bills. This is an example of a mostly dead bill coming back to haunt us. The residential rental tax was passed early in the session. It was vetoed. We cheered. We said, yay, victory. But there was a second version of that bill. One bill started in the House, another bill started in the Senate. And it turned out that that second bill was used as a bargaining chip to pass the Prop 400 bill, which will allow Maricopa County voters to vote on a continuation of their half-cent sales tax. There was an article in the Green Valley News about that. Town manager Shane Dilley did a fantastic job in that interview, and I recommend reading that for more information. So what are we doing to prepare for 2024? Next month, we're having Karen Cruz come down, and we're convening a meeting with a number of department heads And we're going to try to come up with an agenda for 2024. We want an agenda where we're asking the legislature to do something rather than to not do something. We want to be active participants with the state government in forwarding an agenda rather than opposing an agenda. So we'd like to identify, what are some asks that we can put forth, whether it's funding for a project, whether it's removing a barrier to the way we do business around here. And we may also explore some federal issues and opportunities. We've barely scratched the surface in terms of lobbying at the federal level. And so we'd like to explore the opportunities that we might have there. So that meeting will happen in September. And then after that, we'd like to strengthen the relationships that we have with our legislators. If you ever find yourself in a meeting or seminar or workshop with one of our local legislators, be sure to reach out to them, thank them for their hard work. I know that Senator Gabaldon is being recognized as a friend of the league for the number of times that she stood with cities and towns during this last legislative session. And then the third way we're preparing for 2024 is looking at league resolutions and preparing for our response to them. That is my next item on the agenda, so I will leave that for the next part of my presentation.
Yep, thank you. Karen, did you want to weigh in before I open it up if there's any questions from the council?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Mr. Mayor and council members. It's my, can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. It's good to see everybody. I apologize I'm not there in person. We've got many moving parts in our family this evening, so I apologize. I really do try to get there in person whenever I can. Nathan did a tremendous job of explaining kind of where we've been and where we want to go. The only thing I would say is that as we develop priorities for the departments that I'm lucky enough to meet with, typically there's not a long laundry list of items, so we may end up meeting over and over again, or continuing to work to whittle down what the true priorities are, understanding that there would be potentially a short-term strategy and a longer-term strategy for some of those issues. So please, let's throw the kitchen sink. I welcome that opportunity to really understand with Nathan what the potential barriers that could be removed, or any kind of regulatory things, or funding items, transportation issues, water issues, anything like that that could receive funding, be eligible for funding. But just understanding that, let's narrow that down to, a few, and then going forward, have a longer term strategy.
Helped us with, in very short order, is working with the state land department and making that connection and putting together us being able to tell the story to those folks. And Oro Valley, Marana, and myself were at a state land function with MPA not too recently, and when they did the presentation, our CCAP and our area by Circle K was actually on their map. So I think you've, with Shane's leadership, have made some progress on there, specifically about that, Bill.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to remind the staff as they go through this exercise, reducing regulatory burdens, reducing old legislation, all of that is great. But every time you bring up a piece of legislation, people lose rights. They lose freedom. So remember that if we're going to bring something up, it has to be necessary, and it's got to improve things and not harm the environment as far as legislative actions go. Just keep that in mind. Every time we pass another piece of legislation, we're losing freedom.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. And what we did, especially on the by right, the zoning, was they were taking those freedoms away from us, from the town. So those are, I know we've been specifically working on things that keep that control within us, so we can have the best oversight to work on those types of things with our residents. Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you, Nathan and Karen. I appreciate the effort. It really takes a team to, to get a lot of these things across the finish line. It means a lot for staff, Karen included, to know that the council is backing action. Regardless of what the action is, it's very powerful to be able to know we go into those conversations with council backing what we're trying to accomplish. And so this dialogue is really, really important. I don't want to belabor the topic, and I know we've got other things on our agenda tonight, but I agree with the comments that a few very well thought out items that we want to pursue is really the important strategy here. To do a shotgun approach and see what sticks and what happens, it really is necessary for us to go through this strategic discussion. I will say that we have momentum on the state land stuff, and I would argue and recommend very strongly that we maintain that as one of our priority items as it relates to the annexation of state land and the development of state land within our incorporated limits. That should be a high priority for us. I also don't want to lose sight of our strategy that we've taken now the last 2 legislative sessions. And that was, we need to be a voice in the state legislature for whenever the state legislature decides that they want to take up an item or a bill that infringes and jeopardizes your ability to have local control for our community. I think that is huge, and that spans over all sorts of different things. And we saw it in this legislative session, and we'll see it again in the next legislative session. So although I do agree that we ought to have some offensive plays, and I think state land is certainly one of them, we definitely need to be on our guard for the defensive plays, because as sure as we're all sitting here, the state legislature is going to come up with some crazy things that are going to want to jeopardize local control. And I really think that it's important for you as a council to be able to protect and maintain your ability to make decisions as local elected officials as it relates to the community that you represent.
Right, thanks, appreciate that. Anybody comments? Councilmember Morales, any comments?
No.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Thanks, Nathan, I appreciate it. Karen, did you have any last minute comments based on what you heard, or you're good?
No, sir.
Thank you. Nathan's going to stay there. Madam Clerk, item number 8, please.
Presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the proposed 2023 league resolutions.
Thanks. And Nathan's going to take this one as well. From a historical perspective, usually I'm on the resolutions committee. So in the past, kind of it's been given to me because I think I know the will and the mind of our council members. But because of having Karen and Nathan and now Shane, we wanted to bring the presentation to you and allow you guys to weigh in. I think the majority of them will probably be, I know where you are on it. There's a couple of them, one in particular, that I really want you to weigh in on to give me some direction, because I could see most of the committees go through a whole process. I'm the chair of one of them, and they have committee members, and pretty much most of them are unanimous. I think Nathan's going to touch on one. There was a little floor fight on it, but this is kind of new for us, so please help weigh in and give me some direction if you see fit. Nathan?
Okay. I'm going to cover very briefly what the league resolutions are and what the process is, the schedule and where we're at in that schedule, and then we will go over the 2023 proposed resolutions. So the league resolutions form the basis of the league's annual municipal policy statement. It's the seed from which their legislative agenda is grown. During the process, a city or town may submit a proposed policy resolution, and then it gets assigned to one of 5 policy committees, and then the policy committees meet to discuss and vote whether to recommend or not to recommend a proposed resolution. Sometimes a policy committee will determine that a non-legislative solution would be best, and that's what they vote on.
Right. Sometimes they've also recommended let the town, because usually these things have to affect the majority of the towns and, not just one. So that usually is where some of the fight is. Sometimes they say, no, if that's your thing, you go talk to your legislators as well.
So after the policy committees meet and there is a body of resolutions that have been recommended, these resolutions are then discussed by the resolution committee at an annual meeting and then forwarded to the membership of the league as a whole at their annual business meeting. The schedule, the policy committees met this last May and June. Currently, the resolution packets are circulating, and then on August 29th and 31st are the meetings of the resolution committee and the annual business meeting. Those are part of the annual league conference, which is being held down here in Tucson this year. So this year, there are 8 resolutions. Right? Yep. There were no resolutions that came out of the Transportation, Infrastructure, and Public Works Policy Committee. And I still feel a little bit of loyalty to my former life as a transportation policy wonk, and so I'm a little sad that there are no transportation policies to consider. I have not put all the text of these resolutions on slides. I'm not a big fan of large blocks of text. I can read the resolutions to you, and they are in your packet. There are 2 resolutions that came out of the Budget, Finance, and Economic Development Committee. One that says to pursue legislation to allow cities and towns to authorize a temporary property reclassification for redevelopment projects that create new housing units. And then the second policy that came out of that committee, amend statute to remove the petition requirement necessary to form municipal improvement districts. One resolution came out of the General Administration, Human Resource, and Elections Committee, and it was a resolution to amend statute to allow for the collection of 10% more than the minimum signature threshold for local candidates. The Neighborhood Sustainability and Quality of Life Committee issued 4 resolutions, only half the resolutions that are being considered. 3 of those resolutions deal with short-term rentals and the ability of municipalities to regulate short-term rentals in their community. The 4th of those was a resolution to enable the league to support legislative resolutions to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment. This was the resolution that the mayor referred to, that there was a bit of a floor fight on it. This was the only resolution that went to a voice vote. All the other resolutions were a roll call vote. It went to a roll call vote. All the other resolutions were either passed with a voice vote or unanimously. And then finally, the PSMAC committee, the Public Safety, Military Affairs, and Courts Committee. This is the committee for which the mayor is the chairperson. They voted to forward one resolution, and that is to amend statute to allow cities and towns to use body scanning machines in jails and holding facilities. So at this time, I invite discussion among the council so that the mayor can attend the resolution committee later this month with a good idea of the council's opinions and feelings on these resolutions.
Right. Thank you. And just to touch on those, the one that I was the chair of, there was, I think, 3, maybe 4, but the only one that actually passed forward was that one, because already under state statute, they have the ability to do that when they get to the next level jail. But the piece missing was contraband is being found because we're not doing it at the local level. So that was a unanimous one. The top one, and then the second one that has one resolution, I didn't, of course, any weigh in is as much as you want, but I think I'm okay on there. The ones that I really wanted your input on was the town's ability, and there was, I think, 3 of them dealing with short-term rentals.
I
There's
can
distance.
read those if you'd like.
They're in here.
Okay.
Yeah, they're in there. And, again, it gets back, in my opinion, to, property rights and what people get to do with it. I know some towns, 30% of the housing stock in Sedona is short-term rentals, so there's some specific ones that really have a big effect. I go back to that. And then the one so I wanted you to weigh in on that, on those couple, but also mainly the ERA one. It was passed with a date back in the 80s, it got extended, and
1970s it started.
yeah, 7s it started, but I think it was 82.
Yeah.
And then they amended it, the deadline to 89 or so, which scholars don't even know if that's even legal. 4 of the states have opted out. So going back to what affects all towns and cities, our governor's female, look at our dais, our assistant town manager. So to me, it's not a rights issue. I think we have that, but my feeling was, we would be potentially wasting a lot of political capital on something that, doesn't have a lot of legs and is, what we do with that. So that's the one I think I'm going to see at the Resolutions Committee, a lot of weigh-in, and I'll be quiet now.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
the Budget and Finance Economic Development Committee ones, these scare me. I believe in the free markets, and when you start dealing with property, when you start dealing with real estate, when you start dealing, those that are in the know, they always seem to get in the right place at the right time, and it just bars everybody else from coming in. And it's the same thing with the short-term rental issues. Let the free market deal with that, rather than creating a bar for somebody to enter into that market because somebody else is already there and they're taking advantage of it.
Right, the two on the budget ones, I was looking at those earlier.
One's about temporary property reclassification for redevelopment projects that create new housing, and the other one is removing the petition requirement necessary to form municipal improvement districts.
Yes, so that was the ability, I think, for us to have that freedom or not. So it was in support of giving us that ability. Shane?
It was in support, it's in support of a property owner who owns these types of developments that are largely riddled with vacancies.
Right.
To come in and make appeal to the council to allow an alternative use, largely in favor of housing.
Right. So that, to me, was on the basis of allowing us to weigh in on the personal
The bigger
property
question on
rights.
my mind is, I didn't know that we weren't already allowed to do this.
Right.
Well, I think it's important, the reclassification isn't a rezoning, it's your tax classification, your property tax classification. So if you have a commercial property, you're taxed at a higher rate.
Right.
Than if it's residential. So there's sort of a disincentive to use an empty office building or an empty retail store for residential, because you're still, the owner is still going to be paying a higher property tax on it, even though it's used for residential. So they're looking to just allow for this temporary reclassification during the time that the empty store or the empty office building is used as residential.
Right.
So it actually is a property tax reduction act to sort of encourage, I guess, private property to be used as residential.
Right.
The rezoning is already there, or,
You don't have
or
to go
the.
through that process.
You don't have to go, it's not, yeah, so it's really for tax classification purposes.
Right. Does that give you comfort?
Yeah, that one's okay, but
Okay.
it doesn't change the short-term rental.
Yes, yes.
That's a free market issue as far as I'm
Right.
concerned. And the other thing to keep in mind, in order for the government to keep marching forward, the next step, and call me a conspiracy theorist, but all my conspiracies have come true. The next step is to remove personal property rights. And we're seeing this now in the free market right now. How many of these houses are being bought and turned into rentals by commercial companies?
Right.
You get rid of personal property, now people will just do what they're told.
Yes,
I share his concern.
okay. Simon?
Yeah, I should say it's
Right.
to some extent good, but I agree with
Okay.
Can you turn your mic on, please, or speak into it?
Thank you. Turn it
Mayor,
on now,
just-
you're done talking.
Just for, I'm sorry, just for clarification, Mayor, the three
Short-term.
short-term rental statutes are proposed to be permissive. So it allows for sort of local decisions.
Yes.
For instance, Sedona could impose those, or Page, where, there's just, it's all short-term rentals. So the local council has that decision-making authority.
Right.
Right now, it's centralized.
Right.
At the state.
Right now, it's at the state, and it prohibits.
Prohibits.
Local
Right.
municipalities
So
from.
so that's the
jumping in.
difference. It does allow, I suppose, the argument, it does allow for local government to, if they're adopted, to restrict.
Yes.
Certain property rights. If the local council decides to do it.
Right, and not if other
Right.
councils
Yeah, I
decide
mean,
not to do it.
And I'll give you, I mean, for instance, in Page, there are just no long-term rentals, and they're out in the middle, literally in the middle of nothing.
Right.
And Sedona, their population has dropped by 2,000 people.
Right.
In the last.
Which
I don't know,
hurts on
and
state shared
There's about
revenue and-
1,300 short-term rentals in Sedona, 30% of their housing stock.
Right.
So, again, it's sort of it's addressing a local issue. I'm not advocating it, it's just sort of by way of explanation.
Right.
That's why it's being pushed or promoted. Because remember, before the legislature stepped in and centralized the decision-making, it was local
Right.
government that made those decisions.
And that just makes it ripe for abuse in my book. I've seen too many towns where they block this off, saying, no more development here, but we're gonna develop here. Oh, what do you know? They happen to own that property.
Right.
That's good for development.
So really, the question is, supporting it or not, it's really, to support it or not is to give the control to the local municipalities, based on that example. Sedona could, in Bill's concern or case, they could go crazy and just say, hey, homeowner, we're not gonna allow any short-term rentals. We would take a particularly different position, I'm sure, but it's just whether we want to take a position that it's up to the local level or kind of keep it as it is. That's kind of where the decision is on that. Did I state that correctly?
Yeah, which I think it's definitely local.
A local issue? Local? 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 I know. Right. But I think I got a sense on there. The other one really is the ERA, and I kind of stated, I don't know why necessarily we're taking that up.
I agree
Right.
that it's wasting capital,
Yeah,
political
political
capital,
capital.
to go for that.
Which one are you referring to?
The
ERA,
ERA,
the NSQL number 1, I think is what it is.
yeah, it's one of the four. I
Yeah,
forgot
it's
the
one of the-
number.
I think it's the
know which
first one.
it is, but
Yep.
when I go vote on it, yeah. Agreement? Oh, so it's the Equal Rights Amendment that was passed by Congress in the 70s to ratify the Constitution, but you have to have 38 states. They got to 35. They extended the deadline, which, again, scholars aren't sure that's legal even to do. 5 states have unratified it. So we're not even close, never mind this drop dead date, I think, got extended to 89. And so it's a matter of, do we want the league spending a lot of political capital promoting it at the state level for
We
something?
got some old hippies trying to get it passed before they die.
Right. Well, it was given by Tempe, so.
To your point.
Sort of to your point. But I figure that of all the things that we have to work on, personally wasting political capital on something that, right, and
That's in
and
reference
has a
to the,
deadline.
it's in reference to the NSQL1
Yep.
proposal, resolution.
So those were my thoughts.
Dan, you can quote me on that. The guys in Green Valley will love it.
So I'm hearing probably don't want to waste towns' political capital on something that will not really, I don't think, have any effect at the national level, because again, they're going to argue with the drop dead date, which was like 30 years ago on there. Okay. And then are you okay on the public safety and military affairs one that got through my committee on there? Okay. We clear, Nathan?
That's my question to you, Mayor.
Well, I'm clear.
I don't get a vote in the resolution committee.
Shane, are you clear on what you heard and giving me direction to go on? Do
I
we
am,
have-
and I think when we, we'll meet again for agenda review.
Yep,
And why don't we just take these resolutions and just make sure we're all on the same
Yeah,
page?
same page,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, we'll do that.
yep, thank you. What, I hope you all know, in the past, I've always gone knowing what I think your thoughts are, and I think so far it's always served us well. Not that any of us are opinionated, but I think I know where we are on most issues.
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes.
was given the opportunity, Bloomberg one time was not able to attend that, and he asked me to step in, and it was a very interesting experience
is.
to be there when they're making the discussions and seeing the posturing between the towns and the
Towns.
mayors, and it was a fun experience to do once, so
Yeah.
more power to you.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. Thanks, Nathan. Item number 9 is the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I hear it passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, item number 10.
Discussion regarding a speed limit change from 45 miles per hour to 40 miles per hour per the recommendation of SOMAS's January 4th, 2023 Nogales Highway Abrego Drive operational analysis.
Thank you. And Nalo, our new Public Works Director, I think for first presentation probably as the new director, or maybe not, will introduce the item and lead discussion. And I think Paul may be joining him.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. It is our goal to provide you with information to help guide potential discussions regarding the speed reduction on Nogales Highway, particularly the section from Calle Valverde all the way to La Cañada. Paul Burton will be leading the presentation tonight. But before we hand it over to Paul, I want to highlight that the recommendation for the reduction comes from the traffic study that was done by SOMAS Engineering earlier this year, basically for the intersection at Nogales Highway and Abrego at the intersection. The speed reduction is just the first short-term recommendation provided in the report that we're hoping to implement as soon as possible. The other recommendations include updating signal timing, implementing striping improvements, and making modifications such as cutting the median about 330 feet west of the intersection to create access into the shopping center. I also wanted to say that it is always a good practice to carefully consider the recommendations from these traffic studies and these analysis, and to develop a well-defined plan for the implementation of these recommendations, especially when there's a lot of potential to improve the safety of the traveling public. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Paul for the rest of the presentation.
And
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council,
I was going to beat you to it. Let me see if I get this right.
Yeah.
So really, this is an administrative action, really to maybe hear direction. Shane has a really nice philosophy, in my opinion, of keeping us in the loop, even though in this particular item, he really probably doesn't have to do that. So I don't know if that's where you were going.
that's
but
exactly where I was going.
Wow,
there. I
there
just
you
wanted
go.
to make sure, I mean, you'll notice on the agenda, it's not listed for any action.
Right.
Staff clearly has a recommendation. As we've reviewed our past practice and currently, where we're at today, we believe this is an administrative function, but this is a decision that impacts our community, and anything that crosses that line in my book, I think this is a great venue to get that vetted, make sure that we're doing a little temperature test with the council. We're not missing something in our thought process and in our approach. And so, Mayor, thank you for couching it that way. It's exactly right. But we work together as a team,
Right.
and this is how we get business done. So thank you.
Yep, thanks. Paul?
Thank you, Mayor Murphy, honorable council members, Mr. Dilly. As you all know, since the opening or the build-out of the shopping center at the crossing and the opening of the Quail Crossing Boulevard extension, traffic has become a lot more congested on Old Nogales Highway in that entire business area. To alleviate some of that congestion, we went to our consultant to check two intersections, namely Abrego Drive and Arroyo Sur / Quail Crossing Boulevard, largely because it's intuitive that we're going to need a left turn signal there at Quail,
Yep, thank you.
and to deal with the congestion, particularly in the afternoon at Abrego Drive. In order to install a left turn signal or do a lot of things, we need an engineering study to be done to verify that this is in fact the correct thing to do, and that's to comply with both federal and state law. So, looking at this entire corridor, we came up with the consultant came up with a number of recommendations to not only address safety, but also to improve traffic flow through the area. And some of these recommendations, as Nalo said, include adding protected left turn arrows at Quail Crossing, expanding the left turn capacity at Abrego Drive, and reducing the speed limit to 40 miles an hour through that corridor. That will also help optimize the signal timing. And so based on those recommendations and that of the MUTCD, the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is the federal standard for all things traffic control, the posted speed limit on a road should be within 5 miles an hour of the 85th percentile speed. That's based on the fact that most drivers will drive a speed that they feel is reasonable and prudent. And as congestion has increased in the area, traffic has slowed to between 39 and 44 miles an hour during free flow conditions. And this indicates to us that a reduced speed limit of 40 miles an hour is reasonable and appropriate for this stretch of road. It has the advantage of reducing the severity of crashes. We've already, through some changes we made earlier in the past couple of years, we've reduced crashes at Abrego Drive, for example, by almost 20%. And so we're doing well on that front, but Public Works also wishes to address the severity of the crashes that we still do have. And as we all know, slower speeds result in less property damage and less injuries. Can I answer any questions for any of you?
Well, thank you. I'll start really quickly. I'm certainly in favor of it. I have been in touch with Shane and the chief. I think since the pandemic, people have either forgotten how to drive or don't care how to drive and obey double yellow lines and all kinds of other things. And of course, as you mentioned, that area has been built up commercially, and you know, during most of the day, you couldn't even go probably 40, especially with that left-hand stacking lane. So I appreciate the outreach, but certainly I'm in favor of anything to do out of the pandemic that can get our drivers driving a little bit more safely.
Since I live on that corner, go for it.
Okay. Simon?
My only comment on this is we're behind the curve, so to speak. On this is, Quail Creek's going to double in size over the next 15, 20 years. That whole side of development my feeling is we should be planning, add more lanes or something. That area is always going to be backed up.
Right. And I know we have
bringing the speed limit down is a great idea.
Right.
Less property damage, less accidents maybe.
Yep.
But we're not solving the problem in the middle of winter where, and I think Bill can probably attest, traffic's backing up, on all sections. And now the new Quail Crossing intersection.
It lines up over I-19.
I-19, and that's why I was appreciative that we got within the CIP, that figure out the stacking going into the Dutch
Increase
Brothers
that
and the
left lane,
Culvers,
yeah.
the left lane turn, because the left continuous lane pretty much gets wiped out when you stack back more than 5 or 6 cars or whatever it is, which was constructed before that whole other area even developed. I know, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, that the left-hand turn signal at Quail equipment is on order, right? That we're moving forward with the left-hand turn signal.
Correct. Right.
So
And
that
that
will help,
was-
go to that perspective. And then as we have our budget retreats and CIP, those are the things that we'll keep in mind as the areas continue to grow.
Well, that left-hand bay is going to be worked on as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's just my concern is we're looking more than just 2 or 3 years down
Right.
the road. We
Right.
want to develop that state land. That's going to be more commercial,
Right.
more residential.
Yep.
We need to be doing the construction when we can still fit it in, as opposed
Right.
to, shutting the
After
town
the
down
fact. Yep.
10 years to fix it. Thank you.
Diane, any comments on Carol? Debbie? She must be happy. Shane, did you have any last comments, or?
No, thank you,
Mayor,
Mayor.
have
Just-
direction?
I think we've got clear direction. This is just a great opportunity to do a temperature test with you guys.
Right, well, thanks, and it also gives the paper an opportunity to get the word out as it's coming, so it's just not sort of changed. Is there a date that we're looking at doing this?
Frankly, we were intending to do it tomorrow.
Okay, you better
We
get
will
those
be-
presses rolling, Dan.
We will be placing.
Well, you couldn't get it done tonight? What's the matter?
I've been here since 5 this morning. If Nalo will authorize the overtime, I will get on it. But there will be orange flags on the new signs, on the new speed limit signs, to draw extra attention to them. And it's my expectation that Chief Nolan's troops will perhaps give some warnings for a while before they actually do enforcement, but that's supposition on my fault,
Right.
on my part.
The digital signs, can we get those engaged?
I beg your pardon?
The digital signs?
The notification, hey, it's changed, coming a new condition. The chief is thumbs up and shaking his
Okay,
head. So we'll
Excellent.
have those out there. And I'm assuming, the troops will be cognizant of the fact that for at least a little bit, this will be a change in behavior and speed. Thank you. No.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I also want to point out that we've been working very closely with Dustin and Haley to make sure that we put out the public announcement on the town website and then also our social media pages.
Great,
So,
thanks.
Yep.
Okay, everybody good? Thank you, appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next we come to executive session, item number 11, Madam Clerk.
Executive session pursuant to ARS Section 38-431-03A3 and 7 for discussion and consultation with the town attorney for legal advice and for discussion with the town attorney and necessary staff in order to consider the town's position and instruct its representatives regarding negotiations for the acquisition of property in the Twin Buttes area.
Thank you. This will require a vote, a motion to move to executive session.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. We'll take about 5 minutes and meet upstairs. Shane has already instructed the staff that will be joining us. Usually when we come out of E-session, there's usually not a lot of comments, but actually for Dan, I would expect some action. So anybody that wants to stick around, we probably will be taking up this issue after the E-session. Thanks.
Hold on.
Yes. Let me see. Okay.
Get her a jar of whiteout so she can correct it. So it's one motion for both contracts? Okay, perfect, great, even better.
Councilmember Morales?
Can I just
Councilmember
note
Morales?
how wonderful that,
That screen,
that wall is now? I mean,
I didn't want to say anything until it worked the whole night, so. Yeah, we're not finished. We're still trying to get Councilmember Morales back on the line, and then we'll begin. I see she's muted there, at least on the screen. I don't know if we have to, she has to unmute or if we have to unmute.
She has to unmute.
Oh, yep.
I'm here.
Oh, yep, thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can now, yes.
Okay, perfect.
So at this time, I'll entertain a motion to resume regular session.
Second.
All in favor signify by aye.
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 Thank you. And Madam Clerk, item number 12.
Discussion and possible adoption of resolution number 2023-0753 of the Mayor and Town Council of the Town of Sahuarita, Arizona, authorizing the acquisition of certain real property in the town for public purposes, authorizing and directing the mayor, town manager, and town attorney to acquire title to certain parcels of real property on behalf of the town by donation, eminent domain, or purchase for an amount not to exceed the fair market value of the property, plus acquisition and closing costs. A, discussion and possible approval of contract number 240008, a donation agreement of real property, parcel 30 North, consisting of 87.75 acres by Amex Arizona, Inc. and Anaconda Arizona, Inc. to the town of Sahuarita. And B, discussion and possible approval of contract number 240006, a purchase and sale agreement of real property, parcel 30 South, consisting of parcels B, 141.61 acres, and C, 4 acres, located in the town of Sahuarita from Anaconda, Arizona, Inc. and Amex Arizona, Inc. in the amount of $1,170,000.
Thank you. Shane, did you want to have any comments before I entertain a motion?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, just briefly, I just want to recognize the team effort to get across the finish line with this. Just in the hallway conversation coming down here, staff has been working on this far longer than I've been with the community, and 2.5 years in the making. And so I want to recognize staff and their hard work. Victor in particular, who really took lead to help negotiate and navigate these waters to bring us to the finish line. So
Yeah.
thanks.
Well, thank you. And Freeport's been a great partner of ours for many, many years. So we appreciate the collaborative effort between not only town staff, but also Freeport, who again has been a great community partner. Thank you. At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Move to approve Resolution 2023-0753 for approving contract 240008 and 240006.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thanks again for everybody's hard work and the partnership with Freeport. Having no more further business, we're adjourned, and we have an e-session on the 14th, but the next regular meeting is the 28th. Thanks for everybody's hard work. Appreciate it.
Thank you.